Out of all the FNAF games, Help Wanted 2 has officially become my newest favorite FNAF game. It has been so much fun. It has been amazing. I just love it so much. Do I like every minigame? No. Is there anyone I actively despise? Absolutely not. They are all good in some way. But some are definitely worse than others. With that said, I wanted to get right into the ranking really quickly. So we're going to start off with last place. Coca-Cola, 5 fans of this minigame, I am so sorry. I just didn't like it in any way at all. And let's get right into why. So the entire minigame I just found was really boring and RNG dependent, and if there's one thing you should know is that I hate RNG dependent minigames. Power Idea wasn't bad either though. It was really unique and interesting. But they delayed the minigames for so long that it just kind of felt like it was rushed, and it just really got long and tedious, and it really annoyed me. It just wasn't that fun either. There's no threat, there's no difficulty. The only difficulty you'll get is by getting extremely unlucky, and that's just a horrible gameplay mechanic. No strategy in this game. It's basically just boring waiting simulator. That was the worst analogy I could have used, but you know what? It describes it perfectly. It's pretty bland. There's not a lot good from this minigame. Let's move on.
Do what you want, 'cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate.
Dear God, if you looked up long and tedious in the dictionary, you would get an immediate result of Captain Foxy's log ride. This minigame is so boring and tedious. I just don't like it in almost any way, and I don't know why that is. The first one seemed fun enough, even though I never got around to finishing it. But the second one here, it's 10 minutes long. And that's if you don't mess up on the Jack-O-Moon segments. But at the very least, it has the Jack-O-Moon segments. If it wasn't for that, this minigame has nothing. In fact, the whole reason that it's not in last place is because of the Jack-O-Moon segments. So, that's pretty cool, I guess. At least, this isn't the worst thing that exists in this game. Do I like it? Yeah, it's a pretty fun game, actually. But I just have to sit down every time I play, because there's no way I'm standing up for 10 minutes straight. But that's really all I have to complain about. So I'm just going to hurry up and move on to the next minigame, because there are a lot to go through.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang!
Wow.
Bang!
Hazard Blast minigames were also not that important to me, except for one, but we'll get to that one later. The main problem I have with this one is just how short of a minigame it is, and there's not a lot to go off of here. There's a lot of talking involved at the beginning, and you only get one weapon to start off, so that kind of lowers the entire experience. But overall, it's still a pretty fun minigame. I really like how they pulled this off. The concept was good. The execution was definitely not as good, but it's still pretty decent. As a beginner level, it's fine. It does its role fine. Definitely could have done better if it had a little bit more time and a little bit more of a threat looming over you like the plush babies in the first level. But that's really all I have to complain about. It's a really fun minigame, and I don't think it's as bad as Log Ride, but definitely not as good as the next following minigames. So as of now, you're probably asking yourself, Night 4 is worse than half the other nights? That's gotta be some kind of mistake. And I can assure you, it is not. One of the main problems I have is just how rushed and how difficult this level is. It's a really long level. I really dislike it, and there's a lot of strategy you can put into it, but it's just so, what's the word? I can't think of it. It makes you feel so rushed, and it's the most difficult of the 5 levels they give you. And that does not factor into how good the game is. In fact, I'd say it takes off points. They add Chica, which is really cool, and I think the only way you can activate her is by wasting ingredients, which you normally don't want to do in the first place. So there goes one of their main threats for this one. But I say the other ones are simply better solely because they're not as long as this minigame, and the difficulty is definitely scaled down, which means that I'm not having as difficult as a time as I would be with this minigame. still a fun minigame, don't get me wrong. It's just I can't like it for that reason of difficulty purposes. And if it wasn't that difficult, I'd definitely say that it's one of the better minigames, in fact.
Give me a drink, bartender.
This minigame is better because not only is it actually semi-fun with there being a bit of strategy, a bit of luck involved as well, but also there's still no threat, so that definitely lowers it down. There's also no ability to fast forward yet, and the scare factor is really just not there at this moment. But what it does better than Night 4 is it doesn't make me feel like I'm being rushed and I'm about to die every 5 seconds. So that's a plus, not to mention that it's a lot simpler when there's only 4 ingredients I need to use for each drink. So that's definitely going to give it bonus points. Not to mention it's not nearly as long as Night 4. Also, a lot of bonus points for that. This is just a simply fun, decent minigame that does better than the 4th night and the 1st night and a bunch of other minigames as well, but it just isn't as good as the other ones because it still has the fizzy-faz problem of being pretty luck-reliant and just overall not the greatest minigame.
Laranja? Acerola?
Yep, that is correct. There's 3 fizzy-faz levels in a row. I do not like the fizzy-faz levels. None of them make it out the top 20, although I think that the 5th one is definitely the best of the bunch. This one is high up because it is, first of all, the new mechanics are pretty great. Chica isn't that active, but you can also see her, and she will be active if you do stupid stuff. They still don't add salt, so it's still not that big of a problem to deal with everything. But one thing that is a problem is just how much they give you sometimes. But they add in the fast forward feature, which definitely helps out. This has the best balancing of the bunch, with the only reason the 5th night being better is because it's simply scarier. This one just isn't scary, but it also balances the mechanics well, so that's exactly why I put it up as high as I did. That's really all I have to say about this minigame. Everything else about the minigame has already been said in the other minigames, and I really can't stress how much I don't like these minigames. So I'll just move on.
Five Nights at Freddy's. That's where I wanna be.
This minigame is fun, but I still don't like it for a couple of reasons. I don't like how they try to recreate it. It just doesn't work that well for me in my opinion, but that's just me. I do like the 2nd and 3rd one a bit more. By that I mean I like the 2nd one a lot more than both of those combined. But I just don't really like this one that much compared to those two. And I'd say that's mostly because of how lame of a gameplay mechanic the first one really was when you think about it. Basically just shut doors, you know. There's not that much complex stuff that's going on. And no, it's not a bad thing for the first one, but whenever you take away the scare factor, it is definitely not as fun as one might think it is. But it's still a fun minigame, so that's exactly why I ranked it up this high, but everything else is just better than this one in some form or way, so that's exactly why I placed this one where it is. Don't get me wrong, this is still a really fun minigame, but it's not that great, and not being great is not going to get you anywhere on the list with games that are so fun and so good to replay. The main problem I have is just the lack of challenge there is in this minigame. You get 3 tries to not mess up, and if you do mess up, it's not even that scary because you know it's going to come anyway, so it's really not that scary either. And there's no secondary threat, so you're basically not even focusing on anything but working on them, so it's not even that big of a deal if you mess up, even though you really shouldn't because of how much you're focusing on them. But I do like the music in this minigame. It's really chill, and I really like how I don't have to look back at them every 5 seconds, or else I'm going to die. But I also find that pretty fun in the other minigames, too. If only they added something to make this a little more scary, or maybe even a little more challenging. But they really didn't, and I guess this really just served as the tutorial level, so I can't really find anything that great about this minigame, so we'll just move on.
I'm an idiot!
You're an idiot.
I'm not a big fan of the Office levels. They're long, they're not that great overall, but this one I find is just the worst out of them all for a lot of reasons. To start, there's only one threat, so basically all you have to do is focus on that one threat. When there's more things, then it gets a little more challenging, but this definitely does not stack up to how difficult the original private room was. You have like, all the time you know where he is. You know exactly where Innard is at every single moment. Well, most of the time at least. But that also just adds to how easy this level is. That's a reason why I don't like it. Not to mention that it's just not that great. You're just watching the cameras and waiting for Innard to eventually pop out and you just have to shut the door. It's that simple. There's no extra mechanics. Moving on. Just like I've said before, not the biggest fan of any of the Phaser Blast levels. This one is definitely higher than FNAF 1 though because it's actually pretty fun and unique. And I actually really enjoyed this one. Not as much as some of the other ones, but I do like how they introduced the balls. That was a pretty cool mechanic in my opinion. Not to mention that the places here are just so much cooler than the ones we see in FNAF 1 Phaser Blast. It also requires much more skill, and the introduction of the plush babies were really cool and unique. With that said, one of the major things that actually makes this so low on the list is because of the entire plush baby segment. Because I would have been fine if they just were like, oh, look, the plush babies, reintroduced them, how amazing. But no, you had this like 20-second wait time with the plush babies where they actually show you what their mechanics are. And it's just not that great. If they would just continue the gameplay instead of just waiting from that, this would definitely be higher. But for now, it's just a decent, fun little minigame. So this is a bit weird. I rank all the other Fizzy Faz levels so low and then I randomly skip up a few spots to go to Fizzy Faz Night 5. Yep. Because it's not as difficult as Night 4 in any regard. But they also have that constant threat of Chica from the very beginning of the night. So that means that they instead took down the difficulty of the orders and of the RNG and instead placed it in Chica, which I definitely enjoyed more than having to wait and strategize around the however long they wanted to take giving me the ingredient. The small changes are exactly what led to me putting this level so high. Still, obviously, it's a Fizzy Faz level, it's not going to be that high. But luckily, it's a pretty long minigame, don't get me wrong, but that's really one of the few complaints I have about this level. Decently fun, definitely what the other ones should have been, and I don't think that this one's as bad as any of the other ones. I know it's probably crazy that I like this one. I don't know how I like it that much myself, but I actually have a good reason for this one. Let me just search through my notes to find it. Look at how interesting this gameplay is. It is nothing like the other levels. It is unique, and it is decently scary as well, with there only being you and the Spring Boy. But also a lack of threats make it a little worse, but I think that it's a pretty good minigame, if a little short. Speaking of short, that's exactly what I'm going to do with my analysis for this one. I'm cutting it short, because it's like a really short minigame. Really fun. If it was a little longer, it might be a little better, but that's all I can say about this one. I'm not going to do a lot of explaining here, because like I've said before, I'm not a big fan of the Office levels, and this one doesn't really add much. There's only one main threat, that being Ballora. Sometimes Bitty Babs can come from the vents. Then there's also the shocking, the plush baby, not the plush baby, or like, the mini arenas are Bitty Babs sometimes, and that's the best part of this minigame. But otherwise, it's really not that difficult and not that fun either. It's just alright.
You are now one of my elite employees.
Fun minigame. I really like this one, in fact. It's scary, it's a good little boss level, but there's one major problem I have with it. One thing that is so bad about it that it drags it down really, really far down the list. And that is that the stupid minigame had to include a flashlight tag level. And it was a good idea, but it lasts so long that every single time I would play this on my first few attempts, I just kept dying. It was almost impossible. It was so difficult, and it really got on my nerves after a while. But that's the only problem I have with this minigame. It's fun, it's scary, it definitely feels like it's supposed to be intense, And I just really like this level. It's just that one section that brings it down so far. It's a good mini game, and I really like the touch of you actually having to crawl on the floor. The main problem is that there's not a lot of gameplay for there to begin with. It's just you crawling on a floor and occasionally throwing a mini arena, and just stopping once in a while. Really nothing that special, but it's still a really fun minigame nonetheless. That is why I put it up so high, but the only reason it's not higher is because Bellora's Gallery isn't the most fun thing this game has to offer. Really fun minigame with just not a lot of extra stuff to it. It's just a game of whack-a-mole, but with the bonds and the bonnets, and I guess Plus Baby has a little bit more of a challenge here. Not much here. I do not like the helpy abuse, but whatever. It's a fun minigame. It's fun, original, creative, just simple, overall normal. It's not one of the best, but it's also not one of the worst. I'd say it's actually in the middle of that spectrum. It's not that great because it's really just the same gameplay. Not much going on here, but that's really all I have to complain about. It's Bonkabon again, except I like the tilt puzzle a little bit, so it goes a little higher. For that reason specifically, nothing else makes it this high. I don't really know. I'm just stalling for time at this point. I like the Breaker Room. It's a pretty fun puzzle in my opinion, but that does not make it one of my favorites. It's just that it adds to the factor of fun, I guess. After a while, it just starts getting repetitive, but the first time you play it, it's pretty fun, so it gets a lot of points for that. Ballora Gallery, on the other hand, although I think it's scarier, it also just happens to be the same gameplay every time, so I don't really think that this one's as good as some of the other ones. I also don't think this is as bad as some of the other ones. It's getting really close to in the middle here, so yeah. Breaker Room again, except this time they added the best character in the entire franchise, Yendo. And since they added Yendo, this game is automatically better than the first. It's an office segment, so it's not going to be as high up. But on the other hand, this is actually a really fun office segment. There's a lot of mixed mechanics here, and they don't actually clash with each other that badly. It's a pretty easy level too, so it doesn't have that going against it. I like the cupcake mechanic. I like Funtime Foxy's mechanic. The only thing I might not like is probably lameness of the Bon and Funtime Freddy. They didn't do a lot with that, but that's normal because they're just trying to copy the original game. Honestly, it's still a fun mini game. I think it deserves its spot right up here on the list. Also, I'm pretty sure this is the last Sister Location minigame. Music Man is a great minigame in my opinion. I really like it. It's really unique and fun. It's a little short, honestly, and there's not a lot of threat besides Music Man, which does get addressed in the later 2 levels for sure. And I really like this level overall. I like the design. I like a lot about this. And I think that it's a really good spot for the 20th spot. I love the food prep levels personally, but I think this one's definitely the worst out of the bunch. It's definitely a really fun minigame, but what drags it so far down for me is just the Pizzerito machine hitbox. I hate it so much, and I have no reason as to why. It's just so bad, and I figured out how it works this other times I play it, but it just is not good for a first playthrough. They definitely need to put the hitbox a little lower. It just gets on your nerves really easily, but everything else about this minigame's fine, except Chica gets on my nerves because she keeps pointing at the machine and annoying me. That's really all I have to say about this level, though. I love the first aid levels. They're personally really good for me, in my opinion. They're really unique, interesting, and I love the way that Helpy just starts freaking out at anything that you do to him. It's a funny minigame, but it's not the best. It's a little a little easy, but it does get bonus points for being the exact level I grinded to finish my 100% quest. So I think it gets bonus points for that, but Pig Patch representation is good. It's just extremely easy, and that kind of boosts it down a little bit, but it's still a fun mini game. It's the funny Music Man again, except now he's ruined. Honestly, it's a really good mini game. I like how they showed off ruined Music Man's design. It's really unique, and the whole place itself is actually really interesting. Now, the problem is with the gameplay itself. You have to deal with mini Music Man, which I thought was a good idea in the advanced level, but it's not really well imported here because you only have 30 seconds to do everything, and so you're dealing with mini Music Man and a bunch of stuff you have to memorize, so that definitely doesn't clash well together and definitely brings this down a lot. But I still think it's a really fun mini game. It's really unique. It's really fun. I just really like this mini game. It's just that problem with the timer and stuff. If they gave you a little bit more time, like maybe 45 seconds, would easily be higher on the list. This mini game is great. It is scary, it is fun, and the gameplay mixes really well together, but there's a few things that I have minor problems with. The flashlight needing to be charged was not a good idea. Like, I just don't really like it that much, and it, like, lowers, because it makes me go a little slower, which is definitely not a good thing, but I think it definitely adds to the scary factor. I really like how he hides. You have to try and find him. It's like a hide-and-seek kind of thing, except you're also trying to do other stuff with your flashlight, so that kind of ruins the charge as well. So that kind of sucks, and I don't really like that. But overall, it's a still really fun mini-game, and it deserves its spot right up on this high up, because I think it is a great mini-game, great execution. It's scary, it's fun, there's so much to like about this mini-game. The map is great. And of course, I love arts and crafts, and I love the energy, just of how scared you can feel Sun is, of, like, scared to, of you to be even in this area. That is exactly why I love this minigame, and why it is up so high, yet it is not higher. Like I've said before, I like the first aid levels. This one is a lot better than Pig Patch, though, because I really like how they added new stuff that'll help you to really start screaming. I like how Lefty is in this minigame, and it definitely makes it a little more scary. I like how there's a chance that he can come from the middle area with the curtains. I just really like this minigame more because it adds a higher threat. And I do think that this is a great minigame because it's still first aid. And I really like it. Yeah, like I've said like multiple times already, it's a good minigame. It deserves its spot on the list. And I think that this minigame could have been top 10 if they added more medical procedures, because this is basically just the first one again, but with like one or two more things. And it's really not that complicated to deal with anyway. So I'm just going to keep it at this spot for now. Oh, and as a side note, I also like the TV ads, how they added that in. That's a pretty cool new addition to this minigame that I didn't talk about earlier. I've already said it once or twice, but I love the food prep levels, and I think that this one's higher than Pizza because reasons that I really can't think of right now. I guess the only thing that is better is that there's no annoying hitboxes like the stupid Pizzerito machine. Also, I really like the level design, which is definitely better than the Pizza design. I'm going to call it the Glam Rock Chica minigame, because Pizza is way too much. But yeah, so this is a really fun minigame. It's really unique. I really like how you have to put the numbers and like type it into the microwave. It's a really fun minigame. It's really cool. I like Head Chef Bot. I don't like when people yell at me, though. I like the food options. I like the sauce gun. It's just a fun time overall, which is really why I like this minigame so much. And this isn't as good as some of the other levels, because it gets a little repetitive after a while, which is, well, not that repetitive, but It can definitely be a little annoying to have someone yell at you every 5 seconds for no reason at all. But I don't think that this is a bad minigame. Like, I think this is a really good minigame, actually. One of my favorites, but I can't put it that high because the other games are just so much better than this one. I can't even, like, explain why either. It's just the way that it is. The makeover levels are pretty fun, but specifically only the Roxy ones, though I don't like the Staff Bot one, because I like how there's actually some kind of threat there that they didn't have in the Staff Bot level. But what I can say makes this one worse than the normal Roxy makeover level is the fact that I have to, like, use the walkie-talkie every once in a while, and I really can't do anything, just gotta wait there for a few seconds while I wait for her to calm down, because you can't put anything on her or put on makeup while she's angry. And that's really all I have to say about this. The level design is great. The thread itself is actually pretty great. And the minigame is pretty fun, too. It's decently scary. It's a pretty fun minigame overall. I can't find much to have that's much of a problem here, but it's just not as good as some of the other ones. Endo Warehouse is a pretty good minigame for a lot of reasons. First off, it's pretty scary. The endos coming at you because you have to look at the memory cards and then you have to look back at them, make sure they're not too close. And once they're close enough, you got to use your fast cam. It's a really fun mechanic. And I'm really bad at memorizing stuff, so that definitely knocks us down a few spots that it should have really been up higher. But I don't have good memory, so it's just that really messes with me. Also, the minigame is only like a few rounds long. If they made it like a tiny bit longer and spiced up the minigame a little bit, that would definitely make it a little better. But overall, it's still an amazing minigame for a lot of reasons. I really like how this minigame was made, how it was planned. It was a really fun minigame to play for the first time, and extremely creepy, because the level is amazing. The endos themselves are actually terrifying when you're dealing with them in VR. And just the whole way that this level was made just makes it feel like it's actually one of the scary parts of this game. There were very few times that you actually feel scared in this game. And there are a few things I can think of, but this is definitely one of the first that come to mind. Even, like, mainly the system location ones will get you scared, but this is, like, one of the few non-system location minigames that'll actually scare you. All the jump scares are mostly surprising because you might not be looking in a certain direction. And it just really works together really well to make an amazing minigame and an awesome time. Cinder Carousel, a lot of fun. I like the carousel minigames, but there's just one major problem that definitely puts it right out of the top 10 list. It's that the minigame's a little longer than normal, and the fire PNG image that they used, I don't really like it that much. But the level design is amazing. I really like Jacko Moon. I don't think it's one of the best variants of the daycare attendant, but I do not think it's that bad of a design either. Although it doesn't make a lot of sense, that's for sure. The Cinder Carousel is a lot of fun. I don't like how they added a lot more to the minigame to make it seem a lot more difficult when it's really still not that difficult. It just makes the game longer. But I do think it's a lot of fun. It's really unique, like the carousel level. It's just a lot of fun to play. It's just not one that I normally replay because the first one's I'm a lot more superior, in my opinion. I don't know what it is, but I find this one the best of the 3 minigames. It has a decent amount of time it gives you while also allowing you to balance with the Music Men. So it adds the extra threat that the first one didn't have, but also adds the needed time that Music Man Pro did not give you. So that is exactly why I placed this one as high as I did. And since I finally got those 3 elements perfectly mixed together, it finally made the top 10. And that is exactly where I would think it is good to be placed. Now, I am not the biggest fan of the Music Man levels, but I do think that this one is really good. Like, I am a fan of the levels, but I'm not like, oh, they're really, really good. Because I think that even with them all being as good together as they are, I think that they just barely cracked the top 10, in my opinion. I still think it's a great minigame. It's really fun and it's really unique. But it's just not one of my personal favorites. I don't know why, though. It's really fun, and the way that, like, Music Man stands over you is always intimidating. Now with the added threat of the mini Music Men coming from the little side areas. I guess one problem I do have with this minigame is that sometimes they'll catch you off guard whenever you're not looking. And, like, I don't really understand why they have extra mini Music Men that just don't do anything besides just annoy you for no reason. Like, there's only a few spots where if they're there, then it's a problem, but I really like this minigame. It's really fun. I think that most of the problems that the first two had, well, technically the first and the third one had, they addressed them really well. So that's why I placed this one as high as I did. I mentioned earlier why I like this makeover level better than the other one. Not only does it keep the threat of actually having an animatronic trying to attack you, but it definitely feels a lot less difficult. And that's a good thing in this case, because I'm not having to stop my progress just so I can pick up a walkie-talkie to calm down Roxy. All I have to do is mainly keep my focus in one area. And really, that's not that hard to do, because I can just keep my camera centered at her while I look to my left. It's a really simple thing, but it also works really well. The level design is good. The minigame is also good, like I've said multiple times. It's definitely worthy of top 10, despite the first makeover level not being all too great. But yeah, this is like a really good minigame. I don't understand why it could be any lower than this or any higher than this. I think number 9 is a perfect spot for this minigame. This is such a silly minigame in my opinion, and I love it for that. I love the goofy energy Sun gives off, the little sly remarks he makes about you whenever you don't do it properly or correctly. It's just a really fun time. I think Steelwool did a great job with this one, honestly. It's really funny, it's really goofy. I like how there's not a lot of threat here. It actually works really well because it's supposed to be the daycare level, so it makes sense why there wouldn't be much of a threat. But there still is one, because if your aim is just complete trash and you miss and you hit the light bulbs on accident, you will die at some point. Also, one thing no one ever told me, which I found out by myself and got a heart attack from, is that you can eat the crafts, but Sun will literally kill you for doing so, with no warning. So that's fun. I really like this minigame. It's really fun. Super goofy, like I said. It's really good level design. It's almost like the people who made this made the original game or something, but what do I know? This game is just really, it's so much better than the first one, because you can actually see the minigame. You can see what's going on. I don't have to wait for something to finish recharging. I don't have to wait. There's no waiting at all, in fact, except for like whenever Sun is talking, but that's really it. Silly minigame, fun time. Not much else to say, just a really good minigame. A solid 9 out of 10. I really don't know why I put this one as high as I did. I really don't know. It's just so much more fun than any of the other Fazer Blast levels were. It works on so many levels that I just don't know why the other ones didn't. It's just, this one is so high for no reason at all, but I also have so many reasons I enjoy it. First of all, the FNAF 2 mechanic really works well in this situation. I really like the mask mechanic, but only one of them use it. I like how I get a pop balloon boy. The plush babies show up, so they're an active threat, so that's a good positive thing. Not to mention that it's just straight up a lot of fun. The way that you actually have to destroy all the animatronics, I think that's how it works at least, to get the plushie is really cool. It really teaches you a lot of things. Also, you get a decent little exercise from having to throw balls at Foxy. It's a lot of fun, in my opinion. I just don't know why the other ones are not as good, and then this one hits the top 10. It's just a really strange thing. FNAF 2 is easily the best one of these, and I really like how they set everyone on fire at the end. It's pretty funny, and the way that you could just get him to cancel out his dialogue of him saying, "I'm on fire," by hitting him with something just for him to go like, "Oh, I'm on fire. Hey, stop throwing stuff at me, you stupid little shit." I mean, it was very clear that this was going to be one of the best. It's almost everyone loves this minigame, and there's a lot of good reasons why. First of all, they have a good amount of actual, like, tension in this minigame with Moon actually coming to get you, but also a good amount of actual fun stuff. If this was this has a lot of static stuff, like, everything that happens in the first playthrough is going to happen the second time. There's not a lot of randomness that makes the other minigames great. Like how there's this chance that, there could be this combination of stuff, but that's not really important right now. This is just a straight up fun minigame. The stuff that you can do is a lot of fun. And this is so much better than Cinder Carousel because, like, it's a lot shorter and you're not a lot more stuff, It's just a lot better whenever there's a lot less. I just think that this one's cooler in a lot of ways. I mean, you can't really see Moon as much as you can Jacko Moon because he's not glowing. But I really love this minigame. I'm really glad that they decided to make this one. It was showcased. It looks like so much fun, and guess what? It actually was fun, to no one's surprise. I'm really glad that Steelwool decided to move away from recreating the games and deciding to do fun stuff, because then we wouldn't have these types of minigames. In fact, from here on out, it's going to be mostly, like, just the fun stuff, the stuff that's really great about these games. And I just don't think that this one stacks up as well compared to some of the other minigames, and we'll get into that one in a little bit. But this is still a really great minigame. We finally made it to the top 5. Some of my favorite minigames in the entire FNAF franchise. In fact, one of my favorite things to do in any game of all time. These minigames were so great, and although my number one spot might surprise a lot of you, I really don't think that anything is, like, we're going straight into all the amazing parts about this game. 5 minigames that every time I get to them, I am excited to play. And so let's get right into it. They gave us bowling after scrapping it from, I think, Security Breach. I know for a fact they scrapped it from Ruin, I'm pretty sure. But they scrapped this minigame so many times that most people had such an insane reaction to seeing this finally being put in a Steelwool game. And you know what? It paid off. All that patience, a really, really fun minigame. But more than just being fun, it's buggy. And those bugs can lead to some of the most hilarious moments, and it's just an amazing time. It is so funny to see the most random things happen. You can hit a plush baby, then it'll just fly off the track. And it's just a really normal, easygoing minigame too. You always know what might happen, but the randomness factor is still there. It's not as fun as the top 4 minigames, but I think that just because of how utterly insane this game is, and just how funny it can be at sometimes, I think it definitely deserves the spot that I put it in here. It is so much fun to watch this game completely break in some instances, and it's just a really fun minigame. There's not much else I can say. Just like in the first game, Steelwool had to have some kind of a repair level, and Glamrock Freddy was a great choice in my opinion. There's always that threat of something being right in front of you. You're constant, and like it's a fast minigame, so you can have that going for it. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's also decently paced. Now, on the other hand, what doesn't put it as high is that's the same gameplay every time, but it works here. It's a repair. And the funny little dialogue options he has is just great. It's amazing. It's a shame that this is the only minigame Glamrock Freddy appears in, though. It's very unfortunate, but I think that for any character to get a repair minigame, Freddy was a good choice. It's really fun. It's pretty intense at times. It's just what everyone wanted. Maybe in the DLC they can add more repair minigames, but for now, I think this is a really good minigame. There's not much else I can really say about this one. Amazing, probably a 9 out of 10. If I haven't made it clear already, I love the first aid levels. And I think that this one definitely does the whole feel of the first aid levels the best. You have Scrap Baby chasing you down, who's one of the most intense and terrifying creatures in the entirety of FNAF. And I just really like her jump scare animation too. The way that she genuinely uses her claws, it looks like she's using her roller skates to come after you. I really like how Stillwell did themselves with this level particularly. Not to mention the new surgeries are completely new and unique, and they're fun. And it causes Helpy to scream, which means you're going to be seeing a lot more Scrap Baby than you ever would have with Lefty and Pig Patch. The mechanics all flow really well together here. It's one of the few hard mode levels. Well, no, I take that back. I think that this is an amazing hard mode level and just an amazing level in general, which is exactly why I think that it deserves the number 3 spot on this list. Number 2 and number 1 are just different levels. I think that the only thing holding this one back is that the other 2 are just really good, and I don't know why there's really a debate on number 2, but number 1 is definitely going to be a big surprise because just a little strange for a first pick in my opinion, but it's my favorite personally, and we'll get to that one later, but for now, it's just, this game's amazing. I don't know what else you want me to say about it. Fun, intense, terrifying, and just an overall great experience. On to number 2. Oh my god. This came as a huge surprise when you first see this minigame, and it is possibly one of the best things to ever come from the FNAF franchise. To see something that has been built up a few games ago for sure, ever since I think the Help Wanted mobile port, continued in Security Breach, and now it finally culminates in this final battle, kind of. At first it seems normal and innocent enough. You're playing on an arcade cabinet. It looks like you're just going to be playing an arcade cabinet. Till the twist. You're in a room with a character playing on an arcade cabinet. And as you slowly turn around, you notice that you are now in the game. This has to be one of the best things in the entire franchise. Then, as you have to hit yourself, your next move, pick up the sword. Oh my god. Steel Wool knows how to make a FNAF VR game. They may not be good at normal free roam, they might be not good with that stuff, but you can count on them to make an absolute banger of a VR game. And this just solidifies their reputation. The way that you get to go around, the twist of you becoming the princess, just the way that everything was handled here was absolutely amazing. Then you come across the gravestones. I just don't know how whoever came up with this idea deserves to be one of the head producers of this studio, because they knew what they were doing. It was so much fun to see this first, and then playing it is even better. The way you just actually get to play the game. You're finally the princess. You are the pretty princess. You can finally play and see this game that has been built up games ago. There's no debate that this is one of the best things in the entire franchise, like I said. The only reason that this would not be number 1 is because every time you play it, you have that entire credit sequence, and the action kind of dies out at the end, but that's really all you have to complain about here. And then, as you finally complete, you move on, you light up the gravestones, and you're taken into a familiar place. The sister location elevator. The first thing we ever saw since the trailer. And it's the sister location elevator. And as the walls come crashing down, you notice Vanny and Moon. Oh my god. The ending for this too is just crazy and insane. I just don't know. This was one of the best things ever. Like I said, if it wasn't for the credits and maybe the action could have gone on a little longer, that's really it though. The action is perfect. It's not too long of a minigame, and even though it is one of the longer ones, it doesn't feel like it. You're just having a great time, and It's just so much fun. I just don't know why. It's just so great. I just can't get enough of this minigame. The only thing keeping me from replaying it every single time is, like I've said 15 times before, the credits. But it's amazing. The details were amazing. The callbacks were amazing. This minigame is amazing. The game itself is amazing. The best in the entire franchise. Steel will outdo themselves with this minigame alone. And while it's my personal favorite, I cannot call it my favorite minigame in the game. Because there's just one that's super fun, in my opinion. And this one's fun, too, don't get me wrong, but we'll just talk about that one when we get there. So let's go on to my favorite minigame that's even better than this absolute masterpiece of a minigame. I cannot explain myself here. This is just my favorite minigame. It's really fun, decently scary. It's pretty decent as well. I really love the food prep levels, as I've already said. But in my opinion, is it a better minigame than Princess Quest, the 4th? No. But I think it's higher, definitely, because it's more replayable in the fact that you don't have to wait 5 minutes for the credits to finish rolling. And I think replayability is a lot better. Not to mention it's a lot easier to get to. Because I have to travel a little longer, and that makes me a little more angry. Disclaimer, it does not make me any angrier. This was a joke. I love this minigame. It's a lot of fun. And honestly, I don't think anyone's going to agree with me on this opinion. Personally, I'm a little confused on why I even put Fazbear Theater on top. But whenever I look back on it, I can make myself a few points that actually sound good. It's fun, enjoyable, really replayable. So many things that are just great about this minigame. It's not too long, not too short. Perfect distance, perfect ambiance. It's just so much great stuff in this minigame that I just cannot explain. And it's the best minigame. And the only reason it's better than Princess Quest is that I don't have to wait a while to replay it multiple times. I can just keep doing it over and over again. And it's definitely my go-to minigame every single time I hop back on. I've been playing the game a lot recently, and this one's probably the one I've been replaying the most. It's either that or probably that's a difficult one. It's either this or it's practice on other minigames, but whenever I want one for fun, it's going to be this one. I've never lost on this one either, because they give you another chance. Lots of fun, amazing design. I like how they brought back the theater. I like how they brought back the endos for this minigame. I mean, there's not a lot that you can say is bad about this minigame either. Besides, whenever you have to put ketchup on the most unimaginable things possible, like who puts ketchup on a pizza or popcorn. I think Chica should be put in jail for that. But really, it's a really fun minigame, really replayable, lots of fun, doesn't get repetitive. Not much else I can say. I definitely think that this is one of the best things that you can play in this game. But I will be playing the DLC if it ever comes out. Luckily, hopefully it's on Oculus and PSVR too, because I don't want to wait another few months so that way that can come out. Overall, I just really like this game. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why. The minigames are fun. The lore is really just basically thrown out the window so that way we can have a fun experience. And it definitely fit well for this game. It's more goofy than the first one, meaning you're not going to be as scared, but that's fine. I really like how they tried to lean less into the scare factor and more into the fun factor, which was definitely a good move. And while there are games that are good because they're scary, this one definitely is not meant to be that, yet it can also be scary at times. Ballora's Gallery would be terrifying for anyone playing it their first time. And really, it's just fun. Not much else I can say. I will definitely check out the DLC, like I said. And the first one I never ended up finishing because I have to play it on my PS4, and it's really difficult to take that and just give the files to my phone. It's a lot. So I've been sticking more to Help Wanted 2 because it's a lot easier to upload clips from that. And I think that this is my favorite FNAF game in the entire franchise because it's just the most fun in my opinion. And if you have your own opinions, I would love to hear them. If you think you're wrong, I'll probably agree with you because there were a lot of choices that I really don't know why I made. Except, no, they all fit in my opinion. My first list was a lot worse than this, so just remember that because unlike the first one, this one actually had a lot of, thought put into it. The first list I made was so bad because it was I would be putting some down. I'm like, yeah, that definitely goes in the worst. This one here, yeah, this is pretty good. Oh yeah, that minigame existed. I'll just put it here. And then that kept happening. But luckily this one, I just kept going over it again and again. I split it up into sections, which made it a lot easier. And, I was definitely a little harsh on some of these minigames, but they're all fun in their own way. Except Fizzy Faz, Night 1. That is it, though. Everything else has at least one good quality. I guess Fizzy Faz has the level design, but it's really nothing too special, so I just think that this is a fun minigame. You should check it out if you're able to. And I will not be getting the flat version, because why should I? Even though I have the flat mode version of Help 101. I don't really need a flat version of Help 102. So yeah, thank you for listening to me yap about this game. I mean, there's not much else I can say. It's just a fun minigame. Not a fun minigame, a fun game in general. With only a few duds in between, and then a lot of masterpieces. Nothing will ever top Princess Quest 4. Nothing will ever top Princess Quest 4. Except Fazbear Theater, but that's only for a few reasons that only makes sense because I'm not waiting to replay it.